Joining us on the line now is Stuart Varney, anchor of Varney and Company, which can be seen weekdays at 11 o'clock right there on your Fox Business Network. Stuart, it's always a pleasure. How are you this morning?
I am remarkably well this August morning. How about you?
Well, pretty good. So I guess in the world of finance, there is a big story about Bank of America. Let's hit that one right off the bat.
It's a shakedown. Shall I just put it simply like that?
Yeah.
They're going to pay $17 billion for their role in putting out, as they say, shoddy mortgages back in the crash of 05, 06, 07, and 08. $17 billion is the payout. That will bring to a total of $80 billion that Bank of America has had to pay out for all of this activity, and a total of $250 billion that banks have had to pay out to the government and states over the last 5 years. $250 billion. And not one time have they gone to court to fine them through the legal process. It's all just pressure from politicized regulators. I call it a shakedown.
The regulators who weren't regulating at the time.
Precisely. They regulate now, but they didn't regulate then. What the devil's going on?
But listen, to be fair, we're talking about J.P. Morgan. Chase has gone through this. Citicorp has gone through this. Now it's Bank of America. I think those are the big three. There may have been one more. Aren't they partially to blame here? Why aren't they fighting for themselves? Why are they agreeing to these settlements?
Because that's a very good question. If they fight it and they say, all right, sue me, take me to court, then the government, the regulators, turn around and say, okay, we've got you on a criminal indictment. As long as any bank, any financial institution is under a criminal indictment, all kinds of people cannot do business with that bank. Essentially, the laying down of a criminal indictment puts them out of business. So they have no choice.
Oh, wow.
They've got to settle.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
It's like a mafia shakedown. It's absolutely what it is.
That's my expression, shakedown. Yeah. However, there's something else going on here.
Okay.
Mazzillo, the guy who ran Countrywide, which was the source of a lot of these really shaky loans, he covered up the nature of those shaky loans. He's now under a civil indictment, and I think that is entirely legitimate.
You know, one of the things I love about the Fox Business Network is that they cover what's going on in the business world from the standpoint of not just, what goes on Wall Street, but what happens on Main Street. And there are things that happen in the news that often have an impact on the stock market, and that is true in the case of what is happening in Ferguson, Missouri.
Yes, it is, actually. Look, I think it's kind of crass to go on television with a financial program and make some kind of artificial connection between a problem with a riot in Ferguson and the stock market. But in this case, there is actually a connection. I'll give you the case of Taser. Now, most people know them as the stun gun people. They also put out a camera for cops to wear on their lapels. The camera is turned on 24/7. So every confrontation, every moment that the cop is on duty is recorded, audio and video. Now, if these cameras had been in place in Ferguson when young Michael Brown was originally confronted, you would have a visual and audio record of precisely what happened. There would be no doubt. And that's actually been in place in a town in California, cops wearing these cameras 24/7. And it's resulted in far less confrontation and far fewer complaints from the public.
I mean, both the cops and generally the person who has been stopped, I think you have to inform them, by the way, that they're on videotape. They both know, and therefore they're both on their best behavior.
That's precisely right, Brian. Now, Taser stock has gone through the roof on this. I don't know how many percentage points it's up, but it's up by about a fifth, roughly a fifth in a week. Now, that's a financial connection to the problems in Ferguson. We're not stretching a point here. That is a flat-out connection. And it's an interesting idea that technology can help in policing this kind of situation.
Yeah, and let me just say, I'm sure all of us right now looking at this turmoil in the center of our nation in Missouri there, wouldn't it have been great if Officer Wilson that day had one of these cameras?
Yes, obviously. You would have an immediate record instantly available. And by the way, the Taser video goes immediately to the cloud. So it's instantly watchable by any district attorney, any law enforcement official, anywhere in America. instantly available, instantly watchable. We know what would have happened.
Now, Stuart, Heather tells me that you discussed Viber, a communication site. I've never heard of this, but apparently there's.
I use Viber.
Do you use Viber? I don't use this at all. What's the story here,
Oh,
Stuart?
I live on it, right? It was same with you, Brian. I mean, it's a free messaging and phone calling system worldwide.
So it's like Skype.
Basically, yeah. Well, there's no video involved.
Okay.
It's just a phone call and texting. Now, I use it all the time. I'm on 3 or 4 different loops on Viber, and recently my Viber went down. I think I pressed the wrong button or something, but the thing went down. So instantly I'm frozen out of my loops. I have withdrawal symptoms. I mean, I'm worse than a teenager, for heaven's sake. I can't go anywhere without... I love it. I like being in the loop. And when it goes down, I feel kind of naked. You know what I mean?
That's just,
sorry, Brian, that's an ugly visual.
There's an image I didn't need at 7:43 in the morning.
But it is an interesting point. We have become so... really, how long have you had Viber? It's only, what, a couple of years old?
Yeah.
How quickly do we become so dependent on these apps and this technology?
But wait a second, it's not dependence. Yes, I am dependent, that's true. But I like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're right.
Tories
Dependent has negative connotation.
Have you ever heard that comedian Louie CK? He does a whole thing about how he's sitting on a plane next to a guy who says, the Wi-Fi's out, man. And he said, "This what a bummer, man. The Wi-Fi is out on the plane." You know, he said, "You're complaining about something that you didn't even know existed 6 months ago." And he said, "You should be sitting in that chair thinking, isn't it amazing? I'm in a chair strapped in, and I'm flying through the sky." Yeah. And I think really sometimes we lose perspective on this stuff.
We had a guy on the show the other day. He's the CEO of a company. He gives his employees $7,500, and he forces them to take a vacation. And when they're on vacation, they must unplug. I said, "You're nuts. You know, you'll never get me into that system. I want my connection."
Well,
period.
Stuart, it's funny you should bring that up. We only have less than a minute here, but we just talked about this report that shows 40% of Americans are not taking all of the vacation days that they're due. It's a stark contrast to Western Europe. What do you think the root of that is?
It's America, isn't it?
Yeah.
We like work. Some of us really get off on work. I do. I love what I do.
Yeah.
I don't particularly want to go away and become unplugged. No, this is America. I'm always on this theme. It's not Europe, thank God. It's America, and I like it.
Yeah, well, listen, we can tell you like what you do, and we're glad you're doing it. Stuart Varney, anchor of Varney & Company. Check it out.
Thanks, Stuart. Good stuff.